සුවඳ තවත් තිකු කලක් රැඳෙන්න ඩබල් පර්ෆියුම් ලුක් සමගින් එන නව සන්ලයිට් රෝස්.
Tonight, slight snag. The government urges patience as the AstraZeneca vaccine arrival from Japan delayed owing to the Olympics. 16-year-old girl's demise. The middleman had charged 160,000 rupees to supply the minor as a housemaid to Badiuddin. Salary anomalies. Striking teachers pin hopes on tomorrow's planned cabinet paper. Warns of further action if demands aren't met. Through the US prism, 2021 investment climate statements on Sri Lanka says that the island is a challenging place to do business. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Sunday, the 25th of July, 2021.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වළකයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Ekanaik. Now, the State Department of the United States says that Sri Lanka is a challenging place to do business owing to policy inconsistencies, amongst other things. It notes that though the country has generally adequate laws to combat corruption, enforcement is often weak and inconsistent. What's more, a significant proportion of the unemployed in the country seek white-collar employment, preferring stable government jobs.
The 2021 Investment Climate Statements on Sri Lanka was published by the US State Department on Wednesday. Though it notes some positives, some elements highlighted are not the same. It says that importers to Sri Lanka face high barriers. Citing the World Bank study, the report says that the island's import regime is one of the most complex and protectionist in the world, and US stakeholders have raised concerns the government does not adequately consult with the private sector prior to implementing new taxes or regulations. The report notes that stakeholders have raised concerns that the government does not allow adequate time to implement new regulations. It goes on to say, Sri Lanka is a challenging place to do business with high transaction costs aggravated by an unpredictable economic policy environment, inefficient delivery of government services, and opaque government procurement practices. The report flags concerns over the potential for contract repudiation, cronyism, and de facto or de jure expropriation, while saying that public sector corruption is a significant challenge for US firms operating in Sri Lanka and a constraint on foreign investment. Further, while the country generally has adequate laws and regulations to combat corruption, enforcement is weak, inconsistent, and selective. US stakeholders and potential investors express particular concern about corruption in large infrastructure projects and in government procurement. It, however, says that while Sri Lanka is a challenging place for businesses to operate, investors report that starting a business in Sri Lanka is relatively simple and quick, especially when compared to other low-middle income markets. However, scalability is a problem due to the lack of skilled labor, a relatively small talent pool, and constraints on land ownership and use. Quoting investors, it says that employee retention is generally good in Sri Lanka, but numerous public holidays, a reluctance of employees to work at night, a lack of labor mobility, and difficulty recruiting women decrease efficiency and increase startup times. The primary issue highlighted as affecting investment is a lack of policy consistency. As for transparency of the regulatory system, the report says that the regulatory system in the island is unpredictable with outdated regulations, rigid administrative procedures, and excessive leeway for bureaucratic discretion. Lack of sufficient technical capacity within the government to review financial proposals for private infrastructure projects also create problems during the tender process. On corruption, the report says that while Sri Lanka has generally adequate laws and regulations to combat corruption, enforcement is often weak and inconsistent. US firms, it says, identify corruption as a major constraint on foreign investment, but generally not a major threat to operating in Sri Lanka once contracts have been established. Further, bribery laws do not cover political parties And a bribe by a local company to a foreign official is also not covered by the Bribery Act, and the government does not require private companies to establish internal codes of conduct that prohibit bribery of public officials. On labor policies and practices, the US State Department says both local and international businesses have cited labor shortages as a major problem in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's labor laws afford many employee protections. Many investors consider this legal framework somewhat rigid, making it difficult for companies to reduce their workforce, even when market conditions warrant doing so. The cost of dismissing an employee in Sri Lanka is calculated based on a percentage of wages averaged over 54 salary weeks, one of the highest in the world. What's more, a significant proportion of the unemployed seek white-collar employment, often preferring stable government jobs. It, however, says that foreign and local companies report a strong worker commitment to excellence in Sri Lanka, with rapid adaptation to quality standards.
අද සේවසකට වැඩි ජනතා විශ්වාසය නව සංයෝගයකින් රයිනෝ රෝෆිං සහ සීලිං ෂීට්.
Now, the 1.4 million dose consignment of the AstraZeneca vaccine from Japan is late in reaching Sri Lanka owing to the flight delays brought on by the Tokyo Olympics. This was confirmed by State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, today. He says that the vaccine doses will be administered to those awaiting the second dose of the AstraZeneca jab 5 days after its arrival. In any case, when it comes to vaccinations, quicker the better, especially since the country's top health administrator puts the confirmed number of much feared Delta variant cases in the country at just shy of 70.
The third wave of COVID-19 hit Sri Lanka hard. People started dying in dozens on a daily basis, and the daily caseload at one stage was in the excess of 3,000. This severity was primarily down to the type of variant which was doing the rounds, Alpha, formerly known as the UK variant. It's more transmissible and more deadly. To combat this, island-wide travel restrictions were introduced, and it lasted for 5 weeks. Just as when the daily caseload was coming down, came another problem in the form of Delta, formerly identified as the Indian variant. The first Delta case was reported on the 17th of June. 5 infections were confirmed from the area of Arame, Dematagoda. Since then, the talk had been on whether the Delta variant would overrun the island as done by the Alpha variant. There had also been some disparity in the number of Delta variant infections confirmed by certain institutions of the health sector in the country. However, Director General of Health Services Dr. Asala Gunawardana places the total number of Delta variant cases found from the island as of last evening at 68.
68 දෙනෙක් මේ වන විට ඩෙල්ටා ප්‍රභේදය ආශ්‍රිතව ශ්‍රී ලංකාව තුළින් වාර්තා වෙලා තියෙනවා. දැනට අපි සැක කරන හැම සාම්පල් එකක්ම ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය වෙත යොමු කරලා තියෙනවා. ප්‍රතිඵල ලබා දීමට සති එකමාරක් දෙකක් අතර කාලයක් ගත වෙනවා.
මේ වන විට කතාබහට ලක් වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ තුන්වෙනි රැල්ල අවසානයේ හතර වෙනි රැල්ලකට තමයි මේ ආරම්භයක්ද කියලා.
අපිට තුන්වෙනි රැල්ල අවසානයක් දැක්කේ නැහැ. පහුගිය සති කිහිපේ රෝගීන් අඩුවීමක් වාර්තා වුණා. නමුත් ඔබට දකින්න පුළුවන් පහුගිය දවස් කිහිපෙම යම්කිසි සුළු වැඩිවීමක් මේව chart එක අනුව පෙන්වු කරනවා.
As the World Health Organization warns of the Delta variant becoming the dominant variant in the world, the only feasible solution to this growing threat is mass vaccinations. On this front, Sri Lanka continues to do extremely well. Daily vaccination numbers in the past week dwarf the previous numbers. And yesterday was the crescendo, with the number crossing 400,000. 412,111 people were inoculated with the Sinopharm, Sputnik and Moderna vaccines yesterday. The previous record was 384,763 inoculations. China's Sinopharm vaccine, which is studied by the Sri Jayawardhanapura University, found to have an efficacy of 94%, was given to 306,622 people as part of the first dose rollout yesterday, while 35,720 doses of the same jab were administered as a second dose. Meanwhile, 39 people received the second dose of the Sputnik vaccine, while 69,830 Moderna vaccine doses were also given yesterday. State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, says that Sri Lanka received over 12,150,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines so far, with 72% of them having been purchased by the government. He adds that the government has spent $77.3 million on vaccine purchases, and there were no issues in funding those purchases. Professor Jayasomana also addressed claims that the effectiveness of the first dose of AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine has waned off, as around 600,000 people are awaiting the second dose.
ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ලෝක සෞඛ්‍ය සංවිධානය තාක්ෂණික පත්‍රිකාවක් විශේෂයෙන් පළ කරා. එහි ඊටාම පැහැදිලිව සඳහන් වෙනවා පළවෙනි මාත්‍රාව ලබාගෙන මාස 6ක් දක්වා ඇස්ට්‍රාසෙනිකා දෙවෙනි මාත්‍රාව ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. එහි කිසිදු ආකාරයක බලබිඳීමක් සිදුවන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට ලංකාවේ පෙබරවාරි මාසේ 15න් පස්සේ ඇස්ට්‍රාසෙනිකා එන්නතේ පළවෙනි මාත්‍රාව ලබා ගත්ත අය තමයි ඉන්නේ. ඔවුන්ගේ මාස 6 සම්පූර්ණ වීම කිසිසේත්ම සිදු වෙලා නැහැ. ඒක නිසා අනියත බියක් ඇති කරගන්න එපා. අපට ඉදිරි දින කිහිපයක කාලෙදී ජපාන රජය මගින් පරිත්‍යාගයක් ලෙස ලබා දෙන ඇස්ට්‍රාසෙනිකා මාත්‍රා 14,70,000ක් ලැබීමට නියමිතයි. ඇත්තටම එය අද හෝ හෙට දිනේ ලැබෙන්න තමයි මුලින් සැලසුම් කරලා තිබුණේ. නමුත් අප දන්නවා ජපානයේ ටෝකියෝ නගරයේ තියෙන ඔලිම්පික් උළෙල නිසා ගුවන් යානාවල යම්කිසි ප්‍රමාදයක් සිදු වෙලා තිනවා. අපට ඇස්ට්‍රාසෙනිකා එන්නත ලැබුණට පස්සේ දින 5ක් ඇතුළත උන්ට මේ එන්නත ලබා දීම සඳහා
As for yesterday's new COVID-19 infections, the epidemiology unit placed the overall number of cases at 1,737. The Western Province continues to be the worst affected, recording 722 fresh cases. District-wise, Colombo yet again confirmed the highest daily caseload. As for today, 1,190 new COVID-19 infections have been confirmed so far. Meanwhile, the recovery of 937 COVID-19 patients were also confirmed today. That takes the overall tally in the island to 267,602.
Now, the police have so far recorded 35 statements over the death of the 16-year-old girl at parliamentarian Rishad Badiuddin's residence. The investigators have also uncovered that the girl had been given to the MP's family by the middleman for 160,000 rupees. The spouse of MP Badiuddin, his brother-in-law, father-in-law, as well as the middleman will be produced before court tomorrow.
The police has so far recorded 35 statements pertaining to the shocking death of a 16-year-old girl who was employed at the house of parliamentarian Rishad Badiuddin in Morella. According to police media spokesperson Senior DIG Ajit Rohana, this includes the visitors of the MP's residence, as well as those who had previously been employed at the residence.
The investigation teams recorded a statement from the servants who were serving at the residence prior to the decease, and one servant had made a statement that she was raped at the residence of the minister, and the person was traced as the minister's brother-in-law. He was arrested and he has also been produced before the JMO yesterday, and tomorrow he would be produced before the Halstorf Magistrate Court.
Further, the investigators have also found an account at a bank in Agarapatana belonging to the middleman who had brought the girl to Colombo. Interrogations of the suspect had revealed that he had given the girl to Badiuddin's family for a sum of 160,000 rupees. The suspect said that the money was given to the parents of the teenage girl. The police, however, suspect that the middleman had claimed part of the sum as commission. In the meantime, the officials, including the chairman of the National Child Protection Authority, inspected the 6-foot by 4-foot room today, in which the minor had been given lodgings in MP Badiuddin's residence. It was done as per request made by the Child and Women's Bureau of Sri Lanka Police. Representatives of the Bureau were also present for the inspection. The report pertaining to the investigation of the location is to be produced in the near future. Meanwhile, the spouse of the parliamentarian Rishad Badiuddin, his brother-in-law, his father-in-law, as well as a middleman who are currently under police detention will be produced before the court tomorrow. The police are expecting to produce a detailed report pertaining to the suspects. In the meantime, several protests were worked off in the Central Hills today, urging the government to ensure justice by the deceased teenage girl.
We will see you shortly after this break. Bear with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the Ceylon Teachers Union once again urged the government to heed their demands and ensure a positive outcome via the cabinet paper planned to be submitted tomorrow. If not, they say the strike will continue despite there being numerous calls to give a thought to the school children and the situation the country finds itself in at present. The weeks-long strike is based on salary issues of government school teachers.
School teachers and principals belonging to the educational zone of Horana staged a protest at the Horana town today, urging the government to meet their demands. The Panadura-Ratnapura main road was blocked as the protesters were marching towards the bus stand in Horana. As a result, the bus transportation in the route was halted for nearly 2 hours. In the meantime, Ceylon Teachers Union says that their trade union action will continue unless there isn't a positive outcome via the cabinet paper set to be submitted tomorrow.
අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශය එටදිනේදී කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් යොමු කරන්න කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවා. අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේ කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාව හරහා අප විසින් ඉල්ලා අපේ වැටුප් විෂමතා ඉවත් කිරීමට අදාළව සුබෝධනී මහත්මියගේ ප්‍රධානත්වයෙන් පත් කරන ලද කමිටුවේ වාර්තාව ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට අදාළව මේ කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාව යොමු වෙයි කියන කාරණාව. මොන තර්ජන මොන ප්‍රකාශ කළත් අපි මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ ජය ගන්නතුරු අපේ ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය ඉස්සරහට යනවා.
යම් කිසි සාධනීය විසඳුමක් පිළිගන්න පුළුවන් හෝ නැතුව මෙච්චර කල දරුවෝ අපි කරපු වැඩසටහන අඛණ්ඩව දිගටම කරගෙන යන්න කියන ආයාචනය තමයි මගේ තියෙන්නේ. ආයාචනයක් කරනවා රටේ තත්ත්වය බලලා මේ විසඳුම දිහා බලලා විසඳුමට එකඟ වෙන්නේ නැත්නම් සාකච්ඡා මාර්ගෙන් අපි කතා කරලා මේක විසඳගමු.
මේ අවස්ථාව මම හිතන්නේ ගුරුවරු ඉතාම අවදානමක සිටින්නේ. මොකද ලංකාවේ කිසිම ගුරුවරයෙක් මේ වෙනකොට එන්නත අරගෙන අඩුම ගානේ සති දෙකක් ගෙවිලා නැහැ. ඒක රාශිය වල ඉන්න කිසිම ගුරුවරයෙක්ගේ සිරුරේ ප්‍රමාණවත් තරම් ප්‍රතිශක්තියක් නැහැ මේ කියන COVID-19 රෝගයට. විශේෂයෙන්ම තව සති 3-4කින් අපිට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්න පුළුවන් ගුරු පොකුරක් මේ රටේ ඇති වෙයි කියලා. එදාට ඒ සඳහා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මහින්ද ජයසිංහලා ජෝසප් ශානිලා වග කියන්න ඕන.
The Bangalore police is quoted saying that the case relating to 38 Sri Lankan illegal immigrants entering India has been handed over to the country's National Investigation Agency. According to the Indian police, the illegal passage seekers had paid 600,000 to 1 million Sri Lankan rupees to an agent who had brought them to the country with the promise of providing them with jobs in Canada.
The case pertaining to the arrest of 38 Sri Lankan nationals last month for staying illegally in India has been handed over to the National Investigation Agency. According to Indian media, this has been confirmed by Mangalaru's police commissioner. 38 Sri Lankan nationals were detained by the Mangalaru South police limits for their illegal stay in the country on the 11th of June. 6 locals who had sheltered the illegal immigrants were also been arrested by the police. Mangalaru Police Commissioner is quoted saying that this is illegal immigrants were trafficked to India with the promise of jobs in Canada. They were staying at 2 lodgings and 2 houses for the past 45 days, claiming to be daily wage workers and fishermen from Tamil Nadu. According to the police, they had left Sri Lanka on the 17th of March by passing 600,000 to 1 million Sri Lankan rupees to an agent. They had reached Tamil Nadu's Thoothukudai by boat. The case has now been handed over to the National Investigation Agency as per the orders of the Union Home Ministry.
Chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group, Raj Mahendran, a pioneer in Sri Lanka's private broadcast industry, passed away today. He is known for the immense service rendered to Sri Lanka's electronic media industry. Raj Mahendran was 78 at the time of his passing. Chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group, Rajendran Rajamahendran, a prominent business leader, played a key role in changing Sri Lanka's media and corporate landscape. The Sirasa Media Network is also part of the business empire he oversaw for decades. In the recent days, Rajendran Rajamahendran had been receiving treatment at a private hospital in Colombo after being infected with COVID-19. And today, he passed away owing to COVID-related complications. His final rites were performed at the Borella Cemetery as per the COVID-19 quarantine regulations. At the time of his passing, Rajendran Rajamahendran was 78 years of age. This pioneer of Sri Lanka's private broadcast industry will be sorely missed. The Derana Media Network extend our sincere condolences. We will see you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the positive momentum which was seen last week at the Colombo Bourse with higher levels of turnover is expected to continue in the coming week as well. The all-share price index ended at 8,136.76 last Thursday, following a gain of 68.43 points. While the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks lost 2.78 points to end at 3,092.31. Here's Dimantha Matthew to tell us what we can expect at the market during the week ahead.
The positive momentum that is there in the market is likely to continue into the next week as well, because the confidence levels are really high with the COVID situation sort of manageable, where the government is looking at relaxing restrictions. We are seeing investor confidence levels booming at this moment of time, especially in the light of economic uncertainty. We are seeing a high level of buying interest coming specifically into dollar income companies. Most of the investors are looking at more and more dollar income companies, mainly in the material sector, capital goods sector, and even the power sector. With that, what we are seeing is the investors are likely to center into these specific stocks. However, with the infrastructure spending of the government continuing as it is, there is investor interest coming into the construction and building material segments as well. Overall, we feel that turnover levels are likely to be high, including activity levels. So overall, the momentum is likely to continue to remain positive in the upcoming week as well.
Now, scores of wildfires continue to spread across the western United States. Both the National Weather Service and officials with the Oregon Department of Forestry say that the smoke in the lower atmosphere coming from the California wildfires has floated over the Bootleg fire, which has scorched more than 401,000 acres in Oregon, but about 250 miles south of Portland. An army of more than 2,000 firefighters and support crew had contained about 42% of the fire by yesterday. The Bootleg fire is one of more than 80 large active wildfires in 13 states that have charred about 1.3 million acres in recent weeks. It's an area larger than Delaware, according to the National Interagency Fire Center in Idaho. Dozens of families returned to their homes last night after being evacuated as fire crews battled the Art Nord fire in Weber County, Utah. Yesterday, the fire had burned 50 acres near Snow Basin Resort as crews were able to direct flames away from additional homes. Weber County fire officials say the fire was started by someone shooting a gun. Circumstances remain under investigation, and there is no word on whether the man will face any charges for starting the fire. Now, one of Sri Lanka's youngest Olympians, Milka Gehani de Silva, also bowed out of the Games today after failing to qualify for the finals of the artistic gymnastics. Meanwhile, Niluka Karunaratne is set to take to the badminton court for his second match tomorrow, while judoka Chamara Dharmawardana will too encounter his first opponent at the Games tomorrow.
The only Olympian to represent Sri Lanka in artistic gymnastics, Milka Gehani de Silva, took part in qualification today. After completing the 4 disciplines of vault, uneven bars, balance beam and flow, her overall score was at 45.978, which put her outside the top 24, meaning she failed to make it through to the finals. De Silva finished 62nd from the field. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's Niluka Karunaratne will take to the badminton court tomorrow against Ireland's Ne Nguyen. The match is expected to begin at 3:50 p.m. Sri Lankan time. Karunaratne suffered defeat in his first group game against the world's number 10, Wang Zuwei, 2-0. Meanwhile, Chamara Dharmawardana will take on Aiden Alexandra Hussein of Djibouti in judo tomorrow. They will meet at the round of 32 in the men's 73 kilograms class. In other results from today's Olympic events, Australia claimed gold in the women's 4x100 meters freestyle swimming, setting a new world record of 3 minutes and 29.69 seconds. The record of 3 minutes and 30.5 seconds they broke had also been set by the Australian relay team in 2018 at the Commonwealth Games held in Gold Coast. In the men's 400 freestyle swimming, Hafnoi Ahmed of Tunisia won the gold. McLaughlin Jack of Australia and Smith Kiran of the US claimed the silver and bronze medals respectively. In weightlifting, Li Fabian of China won the gold medal in the men's 61 kg event. The silver went to Iran and the bronze went to Kazakhstan. At the end of the second day of Tokyo 2020, China is leading the medal rankings with 6 golds, 1 silver and 4 bronze medals, giving them a tally of 11 medals. The host, Japan, is on second place with 5 gold medals and 1 silver. The US, which claimed the highest number of gold medals in the last 2 Olympics, is in third place at present with 4 golds, 2 silvers and 4 bronze.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.